we should probably like begin there. Tam Nakano wins the championship, defeats Giulia for the championship. I kind of alluded to it last week where I was like, man, they could break up their year long title reign thing, and it would not be any like much for worse or whatever. I didn't actually expect them to do it.
Same.
It's your time, man. You get busy.
I mean, I was gonna save it for like once you got through the match, but I mean, if you want to do it here, we can do it. Hey, man, there. Niagara Driver pointed this out on Twitter. I never would have came across this unless he had mentioned this. Obviously, person is a bit of a invisible hand with One Ace Rate, especially in terms of Puro and Joshi. And he said that like Tam Nakano now joins Manami Toyota as the only two women to ever win main events in Yokohama Arena in Budokan Hall. Not bad for somebody that people think isn't a good wrestler or was a good wrestler or is some person that doesn't deserve this spot. It's kind of amazing. Like I saw a lot of people that I don't know how much they follow the promotion or whatever else, or aware of like the differences between Western fandom and the actual real fandom that they give a fuck about that actually means the dollars and cents for this company. But like people were like shocked about the Giulia thing. And look,
I am too.
The pattern gets you into it. Absolutely. And like I said, I predicted that Giulia was going to retain, whether it was a draw or whatever she was going to retain.
Like they didn't exactly heat Tam Nakano up, James. Like she was coming off of losing at the end of the year, getting geeked at Wrestle Kingdom under 5 minutes, and then after that is like tournament stuff or whatever, but. It wasn't like she was coming in here like Giulia or Shuri, like the last like 2 changes.
Yeah, that's true. But I would say that like, by the way everybody has talked about it from the fandom that watches all the shows, it wasn't while she was a champion. It wasn't like she was lighting the world on fire either. And while I think that the matches, absolutely should keep Giulia from getting any criticism. Like, it's Stardom, and she was out here being a fucking ice ribbon merchant. No one gave a fuck about that outside of the Suzuki thing. Like, Maya Yuki, she's my favorite ice ribboner. She was new. She came in, she had to get her first win on the first show of the year in the Triangle Derby thing to set this whole thing up.
Man,
and then ultimately, what did they do? They had a really fun match. Ultimately, went to a double count out because neither one of them would put the other one over. And like, to be quite honest with you, if you're a freelancer like Maya is, and you be like, hey, so what is Giulia going to do after in the future after we get a rematch for this thing? And he's like, oh, she's about to lose the belt. Oh, I'm not putting her over. I'm not doing that. So, but that's too far down the line. So for me,
I'm like, was there not a new Tommy match? Was there like I don't know, bro.
I thought
what is going on? Like
once they announced the match, right? Once they announced,
like we can't just assume she's gonna get that shit back. Like
yeah. I'll get to that. Like I said it last week when they announced Yokohama Arena, and I was at the show, the Sumo Hall show. My immediate thought was that's where they're going to run Shuri and Utami.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't.
Or Giulia and Utami.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yes, Giulia and Utami. That's where they're going to run it. They finally did the match or whatever else. But once the 3 count lands and the shock and the joy and all that kind of stuff happens, it's like, oh well, Giulia can lose here because this just means that she can just get it back in a year or 18 months. Right? Like, she has a short run. People forget about it. She can go do other things that's away from the title, in which she tends to be better at, like, as a champ. She's better as a non-singles champion so far than actually as one. And, like, she can do other stuff around. And then, like, she can build back towards it or whatever else. And who knows what happens when it comes to, whether Tam's a champion or even if Tam's a long run champion either. Like, I have my doubts about that. Like, honestly, like, the reason why I thought that, like, Jules can get the long run was, like, they can break up the pattern by having Tam be the short reign. I thought Tam was going to be short. I thought Sham was going to get like 4 or 5 months with it, and then they were going to get to Kamatani or whoever else. That's what I always thought.
I just remember how big the Giulia title win finally felt, the dethroning of Shuri, and then like, they just care about other stuff. Like it was, I was shocked when I saw it. I was like, 'cause I was unspoiled. I was watching the show. Got a phone call from a buddy of mine. Had to pause it. I didn't get back to watching it until today. In the meantime, I got spoiled, and I was like, wow. But I don't know. I feel like you gotta ask questions on the booking. Like they designed only 2 defenses for Giulia, and they were these outsider defenses. Like they didn't see fit to try to. I guess maybe it was like they knew they were taking it off, or why burn anything off? Maybe
that's what I come back to. That's what I circle back to. Like the once they do the time limit draw at the beginning of
But I'm like, how do you allow like Tam to get like killed at Wrestle Kingdom like that, or that's just like the IWGP belt? That shit don't count. That shit's over there.
No,
like,
Rich, there's going to be a Kyrie. There's going to be a Kyrie defense.
Yeah,
like it makes all like. There's this stuff that happens with Tam and stuff that like I'm following it or whatever else. And I'm like, okay, that seems like a loose thread. And then all of a sudden, like a year goes by and I get reminded of something, and I'm like, holy shit. So, it's so like that whole thing. Like when you think about it, right? Tam is the only start. Like we talk as far as like people that were surprised about like Tam winning and like think that Giulia is like the ace, and it's like that's never been the reality. Like she's never been the top star in the promotion as far as like the dollars and cents. She's always been presented to be that because they put her in the main event and they put her in a faction that was OP as fuck for forever, but that was never the reality of like she was a bigger star than Mayu at the start, or then was a bigger star than Tam. That's never been the case. It's always been either Mayu or Tam. It's always been the case. It's just the presentation is so different because it's like, well, once presented as underdog babyface with a faction full of like very popular losers, the other person's out there with the fucking, with the chain gang beating everybody's ass. So if you're just watching and you're not thinking about that kind of stuff, that's what happens to you. But like, that's what I always tell you, like, this is Giulia in Tam's promotion. Like Hoshiki and Hannah not being here, like that's where like those two are always going to be in the mix, be at the top, especially Giulia. But once those two get out there, and I kind of feel like Kamatani is taking the Hoshiki slot. But like once Tam was always going to get the white belt or whatever else. But like once the space was created for everybody, people like you get Shuri gets a title reign that never was set to exist until those two things happen with the two, the unfortunate passing and the injuries to Hoshiki. And then also you had to fill up the rest out of the timeout. Like, then you throw in like when Giulia got hurt in 2021, by all accounts, she was scheduled to win that Grand Prix, which means that Giulia
probably would have won that belt back then.
Possibly. Like, there's always talk of like she was going to win, lose to Tommy, and then Shuri was going to win in one of the two Sumo Hall shows at the beginning of March of 2021, and then they were going to get it to Giulia then, at some point. But like at some point, so then you think about that, it's like, all right, well then who would have won the 2022 Grand Prix? You think about it, it's like, oh, probably Tam by that point in time. You think just thinking of the stuff through. It's so like they basically took out Tam's Grand Prix win, gave it to Giulia, swapped it out, gave Shuri Giulia's slot, and then they basically maneuvered and figured out to get back on track on the timeline they wanted to, where like either Giulia or Tam was going to be the champion at some point. So, and now you have this, and Tam's gonna be the champion. And like I said last week, like Giulia had plenty of feuds or programs and title defenses. Tam has more because of the nature of how Tam's been presented. Like she's now on top, and now she's going to face all these people that have winning records over her, or she's never been able to beat. Like at some point, it's going to be, unless it's a short reign, who knows? But like if this is a 9-month reign, there's going to be a Shuri match. There's going to be a Kairi match. There's going to be a Mayu match. There's going to be a Kamatani gets her first toes into the red belt scene match as well. All these people have winning records over her, or she's never beaten Mayu or Kairi or Shuri. So yeah, like I was expecting this 2024. It happened a year early. I was fucking shocked. I was watching this match and loving the match. I never thought that while watching it that like, oh, Tam can win until she kicked out of the Northern Lights bomb, and I was like, oh, this is something. What's this? And then then they're doing it. They're going back and forth, and they're kicking out of big moves, and then Giulia sprints towards her, and Tam just catches her in the air and hulks her up, and then hits her own Northern Lights bomb. I was like, holy shit! Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh shit, she might win here. And then she hits the Twilight Dream, and I was like, for a near fall, I was like, oh, she's done. She already kicked out of one earlier. Mm-hmm. I think she's the first person to ever kick out of one. And then she hurts her up for the Violet Screwdriver, and I was like, I'm leaning into my edge of my seat. I'm like, and she's up there forever. I was like, she's not gonna wiggle free. She dropped her. I was like, holy shit. And then I obviously you're having problems with your OBS, but if anybody wants to see what my reaction would have been, you can go to my Twitter. And like I basically just put the clip of Tam holding the pin and hooking the leg, and I put in the Dominion 2018 audio when Kenny Omega finally beat Okada when Okada was yelling, "Hook the leg! Hook the leg! Hook the leg! Hook the leg! He hooked the leg!" I just could not believe it, bro. Like it was like 7:10 in the morning, and I shouted out loud in shock. I couldn't fucking believe that she had won. I literally was like, this is like watching your sports team versus the champion rival, and you know that they have the better team. And the match is, and then obviously like the team is showing itself that like this team is better. And then you get to the final minutes, and all of a sudden it's a neck and neck race. You're like, holy shit. And then you fucking win. It was almost like Auburn, Alabama kick 6 2013, where it's like, I wasn't expecting this. I'll take it. And it's gonna eat y'all. And I was shocked. So yeah, man, like it was an awesome match. Like obviously we basically talked about everything but the match, but like the match was fucking incredible. It's it's just like the hair match, just like the Grand Prix match. It's right there in terms of all of that. Like I think I think the shock of the win for a lot of people puts it like on that par with the hair match. I think it's higher on cage match right now. I think it'll go down. I think it'll still probably end up higher by the end of it. I still think it's their second. I think it's their second best match. So
yeah, I want to say I like the Grand Prix. I like the Grand Prix one more. It was just a little bit more concise, but this match didn't overstay its welcome at all or anything. It was funny that the ref was telling them to stop like punching each other, even though they were like throwing each other through tables and shit. Like it was pretty funny.
But that was part of the story. Like Tam is just outdoing her, and Giulia like resorts to shoot punches to get and like it's Stardom. Ever since the Yoshiko at Yasukawa thing, like there was a rule for like a few years. There was no closed fist punches in Stardom. It was banned. So that's why like the crowd was reacting that way. Like she was getting heat because she was cheating, but she was cheating because she wasn't going to get DQ'd. She was working heel. She was working heel to get back into the game. Like, look, I thought the match was great. But whatever. Like this whole card was great, and I just it's amazing. Like I don't know if you want to go basically from the top down now. At this point.
Yeah, we go top down.
Yeah, let's like top down. So, so Tam wins, and like she does a big sign off and everything. And Rich, did you see the post match or no?
I saw it was in Japanese, so I couldn't tell what they were saying.
But did you see the end?
No.
Okay, so during the trios match, Sariano ended up pinning Suzu. So Kairi, Sayori, and Natsupoi are the trios champions. So while watching the match, I'm looking at
sorry,
the floor,
Velkej.
Like, say again?
I said sorry, Velkej.
Yeah, if I was petty, I would expose that gimmick, but we'll move on. But anyway, so she goes to sign off with everybody, or on the floor during the match. I see Kyrie there cornering like with the rest of Cosmic Angels. So at the end of it, like, you know, obviously Natsupoi's first person to, you know, congratulate Tam and everything, and then like for it's time to sign off with the pictures and everything, like Tam, she's waving Natsupoi to get in, tells Sayori to come in or whatever else, and then like she also tells Kyrie to get in, come in, and Kyrie's looking like, what? So you can see Kyrie like looking at Tam and then looking at Rossi and then looking back at Tam, and then like Tam keeps saying, "Come in, come in."
What is this?
Right. So then Kyrie just gets in the ring. It's, you know, it's Tam in the front with a pose, and then there's Natsupoi, Sayori, and Kyrie with the trios belts. And like, I think Tam is trying to scam Kyrie into Cosmic Angels.
Sick.
Yes. A real worker. So yeah, man.
Look,
that's
like Hulk Hogan trying to put Bret Hart in the unit with her. You know,
right.
Don't have to face you. You know,
no, don't face each other. It don't happen. But I think it makes for good fallout.
Keep you right underneath. You know.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you know, it is interesting. Like, you know, you look at the build for that match. Now I'm bringing up Velkej because, you know, his gimmick. He had brought up something that I had forgot about. So at the 2020 anniversary show, Tam beat Kagetsu. It was her last Korakuen Hall match in Stardom. And like at the end, like Tam, you know, because you know she was originally in Oedo, she ended up losing this huge anniversary show from 2018 match, and like, you know, ultimately they had to separate. Like the loser had to leave. The last loser in the elimination match had to leave their faction. Came down to Momo and came down to Tam. Momo beat Tam. So 2 years later at the anniversary show, Tam finally beats Getsu. Getsu's on the way out, and Tam is like apologetic and saying like, "I'm sorry I disappointed you and turned out the way I turned out and everything." And then Getsu was like, "Look, I believe that like you'll win the white belt one day, and I believe that like you chose the path that was right for you at the time, and like I believe that you can truly be at the center of Stardom, right?" And then you flash back to, you know, the press conference between Giulia and Tam, and Giulia, before she busted Tam open, was like, you can only make it in wrestling because you couldn't make it as an idol. You couldn't be a center girl in a faction. Now, and then on the English commentary, even Charlton mentioned it, like she's at the center of Stardom on the top of thing. It's like, I had totally forgot about that. So like when Velkej and his gimmicks about how much he hates the Tam lore, don't fall for that. It's always been a gimmick since day one. That dude is a troll account. So anyway, we can move over there. So thank you for adding to like the basically a throw in story part beat from 2020 to now, Velkej. You have now further explained how Tam is like a master storyteller. Thank you. So yeah. Let's move on. IWG